So coming from TechCrunch, Anthropic has acquired the DevTools startup used by OpenAI, Google, and Cloudflare. It does look like Anthropic has officially purchased this company called Stainless. And I think this is an important thing to be thinking about if you're actually in the technology world, because we have gotten to that period of this particular tech cycle where basically a lot of companies out there that are actually providing value, they're actually providing services to users and customers, they are going to start getting bought up by the bigger players so that the bigger players can try to remain relevant. And the issue is going to be, the issue is not that a big technology company is buying a startup company and what's going to happen with the pricing or whatever else. What's going to happen here is basically that these big technology companies buy these smaller startup companies and then fold them in to the larger technology company and stop selling the original company's products. And this can be absolutely devastating for you. This is one of the big reasons that I tell people with this whole AI boom that maybe you should give it a beat. Maybe you should give it a minute, because you want to make sure that the product that you're integrating into your infrastructure isn't going to go poof tomorrow. Now, when we talk about going poof, most of the time we talk about this, we think about startup companies completely and utterly failing, right? They burn through their runway, they crash and burn, and the company goes by, whatever, right? So a lot of people out there like, Eli, you don't understand. I know this CEO. I know this team. I know this product. I believe in this company, right? So they think that's okay, right? Like, don't worry about it. This isn't going to be one of those companies that fails. I know it's going to be a company that succeeds. But what happens if it succeeds to such a degree? A $1 trillion company comes in, snaps it up for what a $1 trillion company thinks is a pittance, folds it into its own systems, and you can no longer buy licenses anymore. Right? I've seen this personally in my career. I talked about this with the whole virtualization boom in the early aughts. I guess that's what we're calling them now. Again, when I had my company, I had my employees, all of that. Virtualization was coming to the fore so that mid-sized companies could actually afford it. Right? Before that, large companies could afford it, enterprises could afford it, mid-sized small companies couldn't afford it, right? Well, you get to, 2007, 2008 timeframe, the price points for these products come down so that you can actually start selling it to mid-sized small companies relatively easily. And anyways, there was this one company, I don't know, Iron Rooster, I forget what their name was. Anyways, they had a really awesome VR system, right? So there's this whole thing, or virtualization system. So there's this whole thing with virtualization, where you have hypervisors and then you have management software to deal with the hypervisor. So you have the instance of the operating system. Those are actually running on hypervisors, and then all this crap is managed by management software. Anyways, if you look at ESXi or vSphere from VMware, that's what they have. And anyways, this one company had a really good solution, right? So the idea was essentially you buy the product, and I forget exactly what it was, but you could buy like three licenses, all for high availability, failover, blase. Relatively easy to set up, relatively easy to maintain, good price point, whole 9 yards. And I was like, wow, I am going to standardize my clients on this virtualization platform. And then Oracle came in, and they bought the company, and they stopped selling licenses, like immediately. And for me, it wasn't that big a deal. Like, it was a pain in the ass because, I had spent all this time to research the product to decide that that's what we were going to start selling. But, whatever. One of the interesting things that I thought with this particular instance was that the Air Force had already bought thousands of licenses for this stuff. And then all of a sudden, right? So because they're expecting to scale out, right? We buy 1,000 licenses, make sure it does what it's supposed to do, then 2,000, then 10,000, then 30,000, right? We've talked about this with scaling out, especially with this whole the U.S. versus China, with the whole AI war. And one of the reasons that I'm concerned is because that's what people do. You don't buy 100,000 licenses from the get-go. You buy 1,000, then 2,000. Anyways, so the Air Force was scaling up their data centers to standardize on this particular software. Or again, Oracle comes in, You are no longer allowed to buy any more licenses, and as soon as your contract is over, there are no more updates. That really happened. There was another piece of software, much smaller, something called Zobni. Oh, I miss Zobni. Zobni was wonderful. I am an Outlook fanboy. I'll admit it. Outlook. Remember when Outlook was cool? Anyways, back in the day, right, Outlook was this amazing piece of software. You could have your email and your calendar and your contacts and all of that in one piece of software. It was great. The thing is, and again, as you move forward in 2008, 2009, 2010 timeframe, you want a little bit more of that CRM solution-y type thing, customer relationship management, like actually being able to track conversations and all that kind of thing. And so Zobni, which is inbox backwards, Zobni was this amazing extension. You could buy $30. You bought it for Outlook. You put it in there, and holy hell, it just cleaned everything up. It was just a beautiful piece of software. It was just like, wow, this is what communication could be like. Anyways, you know where this is going. Yeah, Yahoo. So Yahoo was in their death throes. Yahoo didn't really know what the fuck it was doing in life. You have Marissa Myers, and Marissa Myers got brought in, and she decided to go on this whole acquisition spree for some reason. They bought Tumblr. Why did Yahoo buy Tumblr? Who knows? They bought Tumblr. They bought Zobni. They actually bought my friend's company. Like literally, I had a friend of mine whose company was failed. It was a startup. It failed. It basically failed, right? Anyways, in talks with Yahoo to buy his, and I'm just like, dude, look, I'm not being snarky here. Why the fuck is Yahoo buying your company? And literally, apparently with like these big tech companies, again, something to think about from a business development standpoint, is that they did not get budgets to create new things, but they did get budgets to acquire. So, since he had actually built something that had been in production, it hadn't done very well in production, but had been in production, they were able to buy his thing and then modify it and theoretically improve it to do what they needed to do. But anyways, right? Marissa Meyer goes out there and just buys everything. Again, Zobni is one of the things that they bought. Amazing piece. You're like, wow. Imagine what Zobni's gonna be like when they have the resources of Yahoo behind them. Yeah, they got shut down. They got shut down and integrated into something that Yahoo does. Right. And so this is gonna be a big concern going on right now, is this whole thing of there are a lot of startups have been created, and a lot of startups have been created, again, to solve problems, right? We have this new technology with artificial intelligence, this new technology. How are you actually going to integrate this stuff into your systems? They are going to create these products. And the problem is you're going to start to see more and more of these big players purchase these smaller startup companies. And the issue is going to be, it's not even non-competitive. It's just going to be taking the hell off the board, right? We saw this like with NVIDIA. NVIDIA was out there. NVIDIA is so big, $5 trillion. They're worried about monopoly laws in this country, right? Being sued for that. And so like they've gone in and they were not buying companies. They were just gunning companies. We're not going to buy your startup company. We're just going to hire your founders and your CTO and then all your high-level technical employees. We're going to hire them. And then the company itself is going to stay there. Again, think about if you standardize on that particular product. We think about this right now, like with Cursor. I'm curious what's going to happen with Cursor. Say you have SpaceX's $2 trillion IPO coming at June 12th. June 12th, we can all get together and watch our civilization go boom together. Anyways, June 12th, there's going to be this IPO. Again, SpaceX is supposed to be worth $2 trillion. Why? Who knows? Anyways, an interesting thing is that Elon Musk came up with this agreement with this company called Cursor. So Cursor creates kind of like this AI IDE, integrated development environment, basically for a platform for coding. And anyways, part of his investment into Cursor is that they have the right to purchase Cursor for $60 billion. And so something to think about. Like if your company is using Cursor right now, how comfortable are you with the fact that basically at any time, Elon Musk can come in, buy the company for $60 billion, and past that point, you have no idea what's going to happen with the product. That's why this stuff gets, concerning. If we go here, take a look. Anthropic announced Monday it has acquired Stainless, a startup founded by former Stripe engineer Alex Rattray, whose software is widely used by rival AI labs, including OpenAI and Google. That is also going to be the interesting thing with this kind of thing, like how many of these products are actually used by the competitors. Anthropic didn't disclose terms of the deal. However, the information reported last week that the company was in talks to acquire Stainless, which is backed by Sequoia Capital, for more than $300 million. That's going to be the other thing to be thinking about too with these acquisitions, right? There's a lot of money, like $60 billion for Cursor. That's a lot of money, right? If it's you or me and we have to open up our pocketbook and spend $60 billion, we really got to think about what we're doing, right? Most technology companies, if they're going to go out, they're going to spend hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions of dollars to buy something. They really have to think about what they're doing. One of the issues, though, with this whole AI fraud is that valuations are so bat crap insane. There's so much money sloshing around right now. These companies can just throw a stupid amount of money on the table, just because it suits them. Why is Cursor worth $60 billion? Well, the more important question, Eli the computer guy, is why isn't it worth $60 billion? Like, no, that's damn, that's not an argument, man. But that's what we're going to be getting into, which will be curious, right? The acquisition will take a key infrastructure supplier out of the hands of Anthropic's competitors. The company told TechCrunch it will wind down all hosted Stainless products, including the SDK generator. An Anthropic spokesperson said Stainless customers will still own the SDKs they've generated to date and have full rights to modify and extend them however they wish. The New York-based startup, founded in 2022, rose to prominence in the emerging AI industry for automating the creation and maintenance of software development kits. The libraries developers use to interact with APIs. Rattray developed software that could take API specifications and turn them into production-ready SDKs across multiple programming languages, including Python, TypeScript, Kotlin, Go, and Java. It became a popular tool because the platform automatically updates the SDKs as APIs change and eliminated the time-consuming process of manually maintaining them. The technology is particularly valuable to companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, Replicate, Runway, and Cloudflare that are building AI agents that can connect to external software and complete tasks on behalf of users. Stainless's SDK tools are an easy way to build and maintain those connections, but going forward, the tools will only be available to Anthropic, not its competitors. So again, with these SDKs, you have APIs and things, right? You create your product, service-oriented architecture, whatever. People are going to be connecting to it. Basically, Stainless, they had a product to go in and automatically create the SDKs for you. And now it's gone. Now you can't use it anymore. I wonder how that is. I wonder how that's going to go. I do also think this is kind of interesting in the world where all these companies are trying to get rid of technology employees. What happens when you have a product that does what you needed to do? You're like, look, this product replaces that employee, right? And fair enough, it does. Right, this product, right? The employee figured out this product. The employee set up this product. The employee handed over the reins for this product to somebody else. And you pay it $500 a month and it does what this person that cost you $9,000 a month did. You fire that $9,000 a month employee. An interesting question comes up though. What happens when that product goes boom? What happens when that product goes bye-bye? Do you have the institutional knowledge to be able to replace an AI product that replaced one of your actual employees? Right? One of the things I used to talk to my students about when I did Silicon Dojo is one of the things I kept trying to hammer into their head. Real technology professionals. We do not get paid for creating function calls or API calls or racking servers or dealing with subnets or whatever else. Right? We get paid for the whiteboard. Right? You sit here and you spend a lot of time drawing a lot of crap out and sitting there with your feet up with a cup of coffee looking at the stuff that you drew out, and you design, and you design, and you design, and you design, and then you implement. right? The actually doing the coding, the actual racking the servers, the actual doing what people think is our job, right? That's the most obvious thing that we do. And sometimes it can be the most time-consuming thing that we do, but it's actually the least valuable thing that we do. And so that's one of the problems that we're running into right now, right? The executives are like, look, we can have this AI do their job. It's like, Bucko, you don't understand my job. Hey, CEO. Yeah, before you lay me off, before you fire me, that's cool. Can you just take a moment and explain why you think I'm actually valuable? Well, you rack servers and you do subnet mask, and when there's viruses, you clean them up, and AI can do all of that now. Yeah, that's what takes up a lot of time in the day. That's not what actually is valuable. And so I'll be curious to see this going forward. And I think we're going to have a lot of these kind of weird issues coming up. And we're going to start seeing more of this. Again, when I talk about the whole virtualization solution from back in the aughts, when I talk about Zobni from the early teens, this is just what happens during all of these cycles, right? Companies come and companies go, and the question is, what do you do after that company goes? And this cycle is going to be so much worse because the two issues are there's so much more money sloshing around. Again, SpaceX $2 trillion, OpenAI $1 trillion, Anthropic $1 trillion. Holy crap, there's so much money sloshing around. And the fact that it doesn't make sense. Look, AI's fine. It's just not worth this much money. And so the big problem we're going to have now is we're going to have people with a crap ton of money continuously trying to prop up their Ponzi scheme as it becomes ever more obvious how idiotic all this is. So I think we're going to start seeing more and more of these companies getting bought up, more and more of these companies basically being sent to the meat grinder. And the worst part about it is, I'm not even sure we're going to get sausage on the other side. I think a lot of this stuff literally might go into the meat grinder and wind up as dog food. So anyways, something to think about. Have you used stainless? I haven't used stainless, but again, the concept makes sense. Hey, look, an easy to use way to create SDKs in order to interact with APIs. Again, that makes complete sense. I can completely understand why somebody would integrate this into their workflows. What do you think about Anthropic just coming in? Not just that they bought it, but they bought it and you can't use it anymore. And that's one of the dangerous things about this whole AI boom too, is this whole thing is that they can consume. And again, they don't really have to care about profit. They don't really have to care about revenue. They just have to care about that storyline. Anyways, put your thoughts down below. If you like these episodes, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Link is on the doobly-doo, along with the link to my LinkedIn account if you want to follow me there. With that, see y'all later.